I'd like to thank all the editors and the board for putting on this wonderful event. And it's been really a great pleasure to hear everyone's work. The variety of work is just so interesting and inspiring, especially for anyone who writes. You know, you're always looking for more inspiration. This has been a room full of that wonderful gift today. I interviewed two of Baltimore superstars who run a program called Stoop Stories. And they began 13 years ago running this series, and every event is themed, and they look for storytellers that can tell stories on that theme. And Jessica Miles Henkin told me, well, our first theme was failure, just in case. Just in case we didn't make it. It was going to be failure, and it would be a good evening anyway. So I met Jessica and Laura Wexler last year when I participated in Stoop Stories. And LPR is devoted to the art of written storytelling, and Stoop Stories is devoted to oral storytelling, so I thought it was a nice confluence. And I began the interview by asking, what's the most challenging part of doing a live show, and how do you prepare your storytellers? So Laura Wexler told me, I always remind myself that it's a live show, and anything can happen. So I work from a place of non-attachment. All of us involved, Jessica, myself, and the storytellers, work hard to do the best show possible, and even if something goes wrong, it's a pretty good show. I just love doing it, and I love supporting people. As a coach, it's more satisfying to help someone step into the unknown and tell them, you can do this, we've got you. I have to say, it's incredibly satisfying to be the frame for other people. How do you see storytelling as being beneficial in the larger world? And Jessica Miles Henkin answered this way. I think that storytelling is especially beneficial now with so many people tethered to their screens and their social media. Storytelling is really an art form that's been in the soup for us as human beings for thousands of years. I think people want it now because in some ways it feels even harder to connect. I've also heard people say that the atmosphere we create has aspects of a church. And for those of us who no longer participate in a specific religious practice, the stoop provides somewhat of a familiar experience. And just to plug my husband, Aaron Henkin, I think that's why the show that he does, Out of the Blocks, is so valuable. He visits one city block and talks to each person on that block. And if you've never heard the show, you're really missing something. It's on WYPR, and he has a dynamite podcast. People who listen to his show can hear the stories of outliers and marginalized people who exist on the fringes. So both Stoop Stories and Out of the Blocks let our storytellers know that what they have to say is powerful, and that they will be listened to and honored. I'm very grateful that there are so many kinds of outlets in the world now for people to share their stories. And I closed the interview by asking, where would you most like to see people sharing their stories, and what do you hope would be the outcome? And Laura Wexler answered, I think people need to share stories in every venue possible. Families, the workplace, schools, churches. There are studies that show that business leaders who share stories of failure help to create a culture where people will feel freer to take risks and be more creative, because they understand that failure is normal. Showing others who we are is a radical act of authenticity. Stories are extremely efficient at communicating who we are as opposed to who we think we are. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the interview.